Hello, I wanted to put together a video. This really isn't about interior formatting. This is about cover formatting. And I'm going to talk about setting your full cover to a print wrap template. And we're looking at this is a KDP template. This is for a 5¼ by 8" book. And the page count for this was 190. So this is their, you can read here, 5.25 by 8, cream paper, 190. And if you don't know where to find KDP templates, I usually just type in cover template generator and it will pop up, and then you can choose your template, type in your page count, which needs to be a even number, and then choose between white or cream paper, or if this is a book that will be printing in color, you choose color, but most of the time it'll be white or cream. And then once you input the information, you click on download and it will download. Now that's for KDP. Ingram Spark, you can download their template and it's a little bit different. If you go to their website and go to resources and then come down here and click on file creation, and then they have cover template, and then I would save this as a bookmark so you can easily find it. I used to have it. I don't know why it's not there now. With Ingram Spark, you have to input a lot more information than you do with KDP. First of all, when you print with Ingram Spark, you definitely need an ISBN number. You do not need that with KDP. And then the trim size, you pick the trim size from here. You tell whether it is a black and white print job or a color. Most of our novels are going to be black and white. Then you choose between what size, what kind of paper you want. Now, the paper is going to be dependent on what book size you want. So if you look here, we changed the book size to 5 by 8, and we selected black and white. And then the options are the ground wood, the cream, and the white. Now, ground wood is new, and it's super duper thin. You'll see it's 38-pound eggshell paper, and then whereas the other two are the 50-pound. So your spine is not going to be very thick. I don't know when they added this, but it is definitely recent. This paper is going to be ultra thin, and you're going to have some bleed through from page to page because it is ultra thin. But it is like your traditional mass market books, those big 4¼ by 7 books that usually have a really thick spine that you're used to seeing, that you can usually buy for $5, $6, $7 at pretty much any store. That's what that is. That kind of paper, that thin paper, almost like newsprint paper. So it's up to you whether you would choose that or not. I would think if you have a very thick, long book, that might be a good option. But that option is not going to be available for every book size, so you just have to see what options are available for your book size. So with Ingram Spark, you choose whatever paper, you choose whether it's a hardback or a paperback. There's only one option under paperback, which is the perfect bound. In some cases, you may have a stitched binding available, but that only depends on the book size and the paper color you're choosing, and it's more common with really short illustrated books. Hardback, you have several different options: case laminate, jacketed case laminate, and then digital cloth cover blue and digital cloth cover gray. If you don't know what these are and you're interested in doing a hardback, or a client is interested in doing a hardback, just message me. I have done every single one, and I could walk you through what is what. Then there's the laminate type, whether you want the gloss cover or the matte cover, just like with KDP. But if you notice, KDP didn't select that in their template because it doesn't really matter the size. Whatever finish you get, the size doesn't matter. So, but Ingram Spark prefers you to pick that here. Then you need the page count, and then you select whether you want it as a PDF or whether you want it as an InDesign file. Now, for me, I do an InDesign file because I set up my final cover in InDesign. So that's what I asked for. Now, if you want to include the price on the barcode, you also put it down here. So whereas KDP, you download the template right there after you input the numbers, Ingram Spark actually emails you the template in whatever format you requested. Okay. There are other options out there. Barnes & Noble, Nook Press, or it's actually Barnes & Noble Press. It used to be called Nook Press. But honestly, most people are going to use KDP or Ingram Spark. Some people may use Lulu, and Lulu, I usually advise clients not to use Lulu because Lulu just used to use Ingram or Lightning Source, which is Ingram Spark, to print. So why go through a middleman is kind of my thought process. But if you ever have any questions about printing, I have been involved in the printing industry for, a long time. I know a lot about it. I've been working with Lightning Source, Ingram Spark, KDP. I've been working with all of them for the past 10 years now. So if you ever have any questions or get stuck on any of them, or just need help with something, don't hesitate to reach out to me. All right, so now with that being said, let's go back to the point of this video. We're going to look at the KDP template. This, what's important to look at is the orange part is what we're going to call the unsafe zone, okay? And if you look right here, they actually say it's red. And they call it the out of live bleed, all right? So anything in this orange part has the chance of getting A, cut off, or B, lost in the fold, all right? So you want to make sure you have absolutely no text or nothing of any value, of any importance in the artwork fit in this orange area. However, you do need to have your background cover this orange area. All right. Now, the dashed lines, the black dashed lines, that is our trim. So this, if we take from this box right here, this is going to be 5 by 8, and then on the front, this will be 5 by 8, and then, 5 1/4 by 8, and then everything on the outside of that black area gets trimmed off. Now, with print books, we have to allow an allowance, and so that bleed that is 1/8 of an inch around is that allowance. So trimmers, after it's printed, it's not going to get trimmed perfectly every time. It just doesn't happen. Even when you have things printed offset with a professional printer and not a POD one at a time book, the shifting still happens. It is absolutely not possible to have everything absolutely perfect. And so your spines are going to shift because of that. Nothing you can do about it. It's normal. Traditionally published books, that happens as well. So if you get a book and you can see that your spine is shifted a little bit, it happens. I know it's difficult to realize that, but it does happen. So all these people who say, oh, you should never have just a blank spine or just a color spine, your background needs to blend. I'm not one of those people that demands that the spine, the artwork cover continue from the front to the back. I think it's nice to have that if you can do it, but some images are not possible. And then sometimes it's okay to have a color spine. You can have your own opinion about that, but it's not necessarily wrong and it's not necessarily right. It's kind of one of those things that doesn't really matter. So just know that your spine is going to shift no matter what. Now with the template, so anything in the white area is safe. It's in the safe zone. It's going to print, so all your text needs to fall in that area. Then when you're designing a cover, you need to save room somewhere on the back cover. You need to save 2 inches by 1.2 inches for the barcode area. Now, If you want to control where your barcode goes, you can create your own barcode and put it on your cover. And then when you go to upload KDP, they ask you a question of whether you need to have them not print the barcode. So you would need to respond to that question properly if you already have the barcode on the back cover. All right, so now what we're going to do, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this particular cover that I'm working on. It is for one of my clients. She actually purchased a pre-made that I had and asked me if I could turn it into a series. And so that's what we did. And I went ahead and did all the covers, the front covers for her series. And now as she's completing the books, she's having me do the full cover. So the print wrap. So we've already done the print wrap as well as the audiobook cover for book 1 and for book 2. And now she is ready for book 3. So I need to set this to the template that I downloaded, which was that the 190 5.25 by 8 cream paper. So I need to get her cover onto that. All right. So when I designed this, let's look and see if I actually designed it to the proper size. Yes. So it is already to the proper size as far as the dimensions. As far as the front cover, this is 5 1/4 by 2. So, which is easy. I could have designed it at 6 by 9, then I'd have to worry about trying to get it down in the size properly. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. I don't need to save it because I didn't do any work on it. That is my PSD file that I just closed of the original one that I created. Now you'll notice that I already had it set kind of to the full width. It's because when I design pre-mades, I use a template. And I'm actually going to put the template out there. So if you do want to work in Photoshop, you can play around with this template and see if it's helpful for you. This is just a template I use to design all my pre-mades on. The size is 6 by 9. You'll notice right here it's 13.25 by 9.25, which is 6 by 9 plus your bleeds plus an inch spine. Okay, so I use this as a base for all my pre-mades, so it makes it easier when if I do wind up selling that pre-made and the author wants the full wrap, it makes it easier because I've already thought about it. So let's get started on this. First of all, I'll tell you a little bit about this template that I have that I'm going to save. It's just a PSD file. The first thing you should do is to lock the guides. Okay, so all these guides are here for a reason. I have not found a way to lock the guides and then save the template so when it opens up, the guides don't move. But you definitely don't want these guides to move because they're really easy to shift if you barely touch them. So definitely always get in the habit of locking the guides, and maybe one day I'll figure out how to lock the guides in the template. So first of all, let's kind of hide all of this information. All right, so the first thing we are going to look at, and you'll notice all these blue lines, we can actually get rid of those by going to View, Clear Guides, and there's also another. But when you go to Clear Guides, that is that's going to get rid of them, and they're going to be gone. So there is another thing, another quick tool that we can do that actually hides those really quick. Okay, and it is Control semicolon. All right, so you can just toggle back and forth with those on and off. So if you want to see it with them off, you just Control semicolon, and then you can toggle them back on. So never go to View Clear Guides because that totally gets rid of them. All right, so the black area is the full size that the printer is going to print on. All right, so the whole cover is going to cover that black area. So you need all the art to cover that black area. Then we're going to do the book size. All right, so this is what the file, once it's trimmed, is going to be. All right, so they're going to print the book on a large sheet of paper, and then they're going to take that large sheet of paper and run it through a trimmer and trim it down to this orange area. So the next thing we're going to look at is this hot pink area. This is our spine, so it's going to get folded here and here. All right. Next thing we're going to look at are the front and back safe zones. All right, so this is all the areas where we want to keep any text. Okay, it's important that all text falls in these areas just for purposes of that shift when things are get trimmed down. We want to make sure nothing gets cut off. And then here is the safe zone for the spine. Same thing. Make sure all your spine text is within this area, so if it does shift in the trimming process, it's not going to get caught in the fold. All right, so other things on this template is I have just this adjustment layer of black and white. One of the things I like to do when I have a cover that I'm working on is just view it in black and white, because you can really see the levels that are in the template. I'm sorry, the levels that are in the cover, and you want to make sure your title doesn't blend in with your background or your artwork. So viewing it in black and white helps you see how much your title pops out. So that's another thing I do. And since I sell pre-mades, I actually have a watermark on this. So if you sell pre-mades, you can use this yourself and just put your own information on the watermark. It's just like an X with my logo scattered about. So hopefully this template will be useful for you. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our KDP template. Just going to deselect it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and place the file of my client's cover. So let's see, this is book 3, and it was after the SAC cover final 01. All right, so I'm going to place the PSD file in the same file as the PDF template. Okay, so it takes a minute because it's a lot of information, and you'll see it's a little off the sizing wise, but that's only because of the spine. So I am actually going to resize it just a hair to fit, and we're probably going to have to do some tweaking and moving things around to make sure everything is still within the safe zone. Okay. All right, so I still have a little bit of orange showing over here. As soon as this places, I will adjust that. All right, so we're just going to move it. All right, we'll correct that as I'm doing it. But before that, a step I did forget is with this template, I'm actually going to draw some guidelines. Okay, I'm going to draw the same guidelines that I had in my cover template. I'm going to draw them in here, but I'm going to follow the templates guide so I know it'll be exact. So all I do is I just, first of all, make sure you have your rulers on. So you can go to View Rulers or do a Control-R to turn on your rulers. Mine are always on. Then you're just going to drag from the ruler. You're going to drag a guide out next to those areas that you need to know. So I'm going to drag the guide out for the trim. I'm going to drag the guide out for the safe zone. And then I'm going to hold my shift key down, which gives me my little hand tool, which, I'm sorry, not my shift key, but my space bar. And I can move around the template and move to the next area that I need to do instead of having to zoom in. So here, now you can put these in center, is probably the better option to do on the spine. I usually put them on the end, but I think you'll get better results when you do them center of that trim line. Then we're going to do one here, and then we're going to do one over here. And then I'm going to use my hand tool again, and we're going to go over here and then here. And then down to the bottom, we'll have our last lines. And we're just going to drag them down here and here. All right, so the reason why I did this is because when we place the PSD file of the full cover, even though it had guides, it did not bring over the guides, okay, which we don't really want the guides anyway, because the guides are going to be different on this template because the spine is different. All right, so now that we've got this placed, what we're going to do is we are going to convert. Right now it brought it in as a smart object. Okay, so if I double clicked on this right now, it would open in a new window and it would be basically the file that I had already built. But we don't want that. We actually want all these individual layers in this file. So what I'm going to do is right click on it and say convert to layers. And so then it's going to remove it as a smart object and it's going to bring everything in the original file in layers. Okay, so there's a couple of things I can delete out. The old template, and I probably have a bunch of messed. This is one of those things that practice what I preach, not what I do, because if you look at this is probably a big old mess. I actually do have a barcode guide just so I know that I don't need to put anything there as a guide. All right, so I don't need that. All right. So now what I'm going to do, in looking at this, I think we're going to be good. There might be a couple of areas that I need to clean up, like over here. Just sometimes, even though this is in an area that's going to get trimmed out, you have to worry about those shifting. So I'm actually going to fix that, but I need to find what layer that mess is on. All right, so we know it's on this layer somewhere. I already have a mask on this layer, so I'm just going to come over here and paint that out. All right, we could probably get rid of some of this garbage. All right, but we don't have to get rid of it too much because the purpose of this cover is for it to look distressed and grungy. All right, so now what we're going to do is I need to update the title on the spine as well as the colors on the spine and the title on the back cover because it has the original book's cover. So I did try to label this as easily as I could. So here's our title. We don't need to do anything with that. Here's our title on the spine. So I'm going to go ahead. All right, so this is title back cover. So I'll know. We'll go ahead and correct that. So this is after the sack. All right, now currently after is in the font color that the original cover is. So I need to go in and change it. And I actually have the AF on a separate layer than the TER. And we're just going to quickly change this to the blue color for this book. All right. And then we are going to do the spine. And we are going to say after the sack. And then we're going to change that after color to the yellow. And then now what we're going to do, her author name is in the original color scheme from the original photo. I meant from the original cover. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete that one out. Actually, I'm going to leave it there for now as a guide. And then I am going to duplicate the author name group on the front cover, and I'm going to call it author name spine. And then I am just going to rotate it and then resize it. All right. And I left the other one there for purposes of sizing it to match, because if these are on a bookshelf, we want those spines to be similar. It doesn't have to be exact, but we want them to be as close as possible in the same position as possible. But again, you know, we're going to have those shifts, so we have to think about those. All right, so we need to go, I think, a hair smaller. All right, so that's close enough. That's actually just a hair. All right, now that's my non-technical way of doing it. You can do it more technical ways, but to me, that's just the easiest. All right, so there we go. We've got after the sack here, after the sack here, after the sack here. We got Savannah Adams, so we're all good. All right, so now what I do, I really don't need to adjust too much of this. If I zoom in, this is center on my guides. So it makes me believe that maybe I used a very similar incised template when I originally did this. There is a slight, I mean, we could measure this. We could use the ruler tool and measure this, but I'm really good with the visual. So I am just going to select both of these and just move it down just a hair. Move it over just a hair. All right. I know some people are going to try to be as exact as possible. I'm a good visual person. I remember back in the, I don't know, 90s, early 2000s when scrapbooking was really big. I used to actually teach people scrapbooking. And one of my dear friends, she's one of those very exact people. And she would come over and she would ask my opinion of one of her layouts. And I'd be like, oh, just do this, do this, do this, and lay out everything. And she goes, how do you get it so exact to begin with? And it's just, she would literally take the ruler and measure out everything perfectly. And, you know, I know some people do that. And if you do that, I am not knocking you at all. It's just funny how some people need it, whereas I visually feel like I can see it. So we're all different, but I am comfortable with doing this, but if you did want to pull out the ruler and measure these to make sure they're exact, you are definitely welcome to do so. And looking at her name, even though part of this fades out, I am just going to move it over just a hair. All right, so there we go. All right, now that we've got this, I'm just going to look around the edges. And normally you can do this much faster, but when I'm talking and doing it, I'm taking my sweet little time to check everything. So I just want to make sure we have no white, no orange, nothing around the edges, so we're all good. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to save this. This is book 3. This is after the sack full cover 01. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to open up the template, and I'm just going to actually go to properties. This is now being open in Acrobat, and I'm going to write this number down. Now, if you're not like me, you could have kept the file and added your back cover text line in the Photoshop file. But I have to be different. I prefer InDesign's text controls over Photoshop's text controls. So we're going to build this in InDesign now. So we have to look at this. Page size, 11.23 by 8.25. That's what I wrote down. That's what we need to know. So now what I'm going to do, because I already have the covers done for her, like I already did 2 covers, I'm just going to open up the cover that I did for book 2. We're going to open up the InDesign file, and then we're just going to delete out the artwork because we do not need that. We're actually going to delete the template. I had it locked, so we're going to delete that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to change the document size. Okay, so we are going to make this 11.23 by 8.25, and it's going to make that baby adjustment. Then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to place the template just in here as a guide, just so I can see everything. And then I'm going to place And if we name them, works out much better. Photoshop file. Again, do as I preach, not as I do. Template. And then we're going to have the text here. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to place the Photoshop file that we just saved. We're going to open it and then we're going to place it. All right, so there we go. All right, so now we're going to lock the Photoshop file and lock the template. We're actually going to cut off the Photoshop file for a minute because here is our text frame, and we want to make sure the text frame is sized to the white area. So we got it over there. And of course it's not snapping where I want it to, because I have a guide there. So we're actually going to clear the guides, and then it should snap. I'll be able to get it to that orange line. All right, so now this is why I do things in InDesign, okay? This is a text frame that I already have placed on this that I'm going to place the text for book 3, all right? The beauty about doing things in InDesign, doing the back cover text in InDesign as opposed to Photoshop, is that we can place it in a text frame and we can manipulate the margins of that text frame. This is something that you can't do in Photoshop, and this is one of the reasons why I do it in InDesign, because it makes it much easier to center text and make sure it's exactly where it needs to be. I know how to do it easy in InDesign, whereas in Photoshop I have to think about it a little more. And so I'd rather just do it in what I know really well. All right, so this is the text from her book 2. And so now I have my other screen going. I'm just going to place the text that she sent me. Now, one of my big pet peeves is how people do their back covers sometimes. It's like they place things without any rhyme or reason to how the text is read and or how the text flows. So something I always make sure to do is, one, I want it to be somewhat balanced. Like I don't want it to lay out where like fly is on by itself. That's a big no-no. That's a runt. We don't want that. So we definitely don't want to do it that way. But I also want it to be read a certain way. So here we go. A football player with a short fuse. That's a great place to end that line. A general manager who refuses to let one bad apple ruin her team. So we know that's a whole sentence, but we're going to have to split it somewhere. And then we're going to put, but when heads collide, will sparks fly. So we know that is a good line on itself. All right. So let's think about a general manager who refuses to let one bad apple ruin her team, or to let one bad or two up there. So that's really up to you how you do that. Just think about, if you're doing something like that, just think about how it's being read as you're placing the text. All right, so the next thing we need to do, and I'm just going to place this first one. Actually, I need to view my hidden characters because I want to know where my paragraph breaks are. So we are going to come here and place this text here. I'm going to paste it without formatting. Why are you not working? It's always when you're doing something when things do not work properly. All right, so let's do it this way. Paragraph, this is going to be called first para drop cap, add style to selection. All right, and then we're going to call this drop cap. And we are going to quickly tell this to put in a drop cap and call it drop cap. And then I'm just going to quickly make this chapter text. Now, when I do interiors and covers, one of the things I do at this point before I even format the back cover text, if I did the interior, is I actually go here and I load in the paragraph styles from the InDesign document. I load in the chapter text and the first pair drop cap. That way my interior text is matchy-matchy with my back cover text. So that's just a little tip. But since I didn't do her interior, I have, I do not have a file with fonts set up. All right, so I'm going to quickly save this because this is the book 2 file. And this is just a draft, so I'm going to call it draft, and once she gives me the approval, I will send her the final. All right, so let's look at this and make sure. All right, so we just need to delete the Calvin, and delete my hard line break, and then the rest of the text is going in here. And of course, bringing it in brought all these hard line breaks. So we're just going to delete those, or manual line breaks. We're going to delete those, and there we go. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly make sure everything looks good. I think we've got it. I'm also going to refer back to the other one just to make sure I had this wide of a space between the opening and the actual paragraph, so it looks very similar. So there we go. That is how I set back cover text in InDesign. Now, the great thing about using your styles, like if you wanted to, you could always import the styles from the InDesign template you have for me. Because like this right here, this likes it. I don't want it like that way. I want up down here because that's almost a runt. So I want to take a look at how the words are filled. Now, had I used the text from my InDesign template, we have those built-in styles that prevent those runts, so that wouldn't have been a problem. All right, so there we go. That's it. Next thing we do is we actually export it to a PDF X1A. And I'm going to send it to the client and she'll review it and let me know if all is good. Then I'll send her the final file. So I hope that was useful for you. Hopefully, if you have any questions about it, don't hesitate to ask me. Something I do want to show you. Let's fit the page. If we look, you're going to see these lines and you might freak out. You're like, why are there lines? If you do see those, zoom in that area really tight, and they should go away. You can also open it up in Photoshop, and they should go away. However, I have had those actually stay, and I've actually had those print. They're actually supposed to be non-printing lines. It's just an issue with the PDF X1A. So sometimes to prevent that, if I have used a lot of certain features in a like text effects and stuff like that, text effects cause a lot of issues. And if I can't make them go away, what I often do, instead of doing the PDF X1A, I actually go and just do a press quality. And I've never had a press quality cover be rejected because KDP and Ingram Spark, they actually typically strip your files of any color profiles or anything, so they're going to wind up doing their own thing to it anyway. So now if you look at it, those white lines are gone, and it just has something to do with the transparency settings in PDF X1A. All right, and I think that's it. That's all I have for now. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.